Hi everyone, this is Ramanuj from LawSikho. We have still people joining in. Give us a moment. Ameya, welcome. We'll be starting in a moment. Welcome everybody. Today's session is very important, I would say, because simple reason is that there are a lot of law firms that are running from big cities like Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, right? But it is a different ball game to build a law firm out of a smaller place, especially like Goa, and to build it successfully and do a lot of work that is not restricted to Goa, but even other work. Of course, doing work in Goa as well. And Ameya is a very successful lawyer. In fact, in the past, when we needed some legal help, we have hired his firm, Legal Minds. uh, there are some of LawSikho students who are working with Ameya as well. So there is a very close connection with Ameya's firm, and we are very excited about what Ameya is doing. And it's like something that very few people have achieved. So let's learn from Ameya today how to build a law firm like Legal Mind, how to build it in a place like Goa. And if the I mean, of course, we look forward to your questions. uh, s- and we'll also learn from Ameya's journey. So it's not restricted to about how to build a law firm in Goa, but his overall journey as a lawyer, his career. There is a lot to talk about today. So welcome, Ameya. Why don't you begin by sharing about yourself? Like, you are originally from Goa, right? And then your journey as a lawyer. Where did you study law? Where did you go after that? You started in Bombay, I believe, and then how you went to the US and Dubai and everything. So why don't you share the origin story to begin with? Yeah.
So I think I'll just construct this a little bit of a dialogue here from my side into two or three parts. Briefly introducing myself. I'm originally from Goa, and I come from a lawyer family. My father is a lawyer. My sister also turned out to be a lawyer. And being lawyers in Goa means that you have to be in or you have to be doing conveyancing practice and you have to be doing inheritance practice. That is what the trend was and is till. So I actually did my LLB from ILS Law College Pune back in the day. Started my career in litigation in Mumbai with now a senior counsel, Mr. Vineet Naik. And the experience there was, in Mumbai doing litigation is always enchanting. It's a lot of learning,
Okay.
a lot of seniors allow you to do, take a leap forward pretty fast. They give you all the chance. Three proved to be very, very crucial. It was a good learning. And then I, traveled to the US to do my master's, to read my master's with Kent College of Law in Chicago. Thereafter, I worked with the Cook County giving free legal advice to the needy people who could not afford services for about a year. So I worked with this foundation, which did a lot of good work. Thereafter, I worked for a investments in Florida. After which I moved to Dubai, and the whole thing at that time was eventually I wanted to come back to India, and this opportunity turned up with the Canadian aviation and a real estate law firm, which is a very interesting combination. And the first time I was doing something like that, and then I was seconded to a company. I work, largely into full-blown law firm litigation-oriented setups. After which, when I moved to India, I joined UPL, UPL Group, and they had a company called Advanta, both listed companies, and that's where I really learned that being in-house is something that allows you to switch from different lawyers into varied areas of practices. Because in law firms, typically what happens is when you join and when you're just starting off your career, you are focused around a particular area practice. And I think now it's in cities, as you would see, a lot of tier one, tier two law firms sort of train the lawyers, train new joinees to start open area practices. You don't really get too much of an opportunity in big law firms to work across offices, to work across practice areas, which you can do in a in-house as an in-house role. So I headed Advanta Limited, which is a listed company in the legal and which is part of UPL Group. And the policy within that organization was that a lot of M&A transactions, a lot of legal work, a lot of interface between company secretary department, finance department, HR department was in-house. I remember in about 3 or 4 years, I traveled across the world, and we were benefited in some way to be, experiencing great learning, great knowledge, meeting some fantastic lawyers all across the world, meeting some fantastic folks all over. I got to travel a lot into, in countries which I would have never dreamt of, like South America and things like that, where we were sent to learn about the businesses. We were learned to look at balance sheets and things like that, which I would have never been able to do it being in Goa or working in a law firm in my initial stages, right? So that is what sort of pushed me into starting something of my own, which was about 5 years ago. And then obviously there were better places.
So I will quickly share while we wait for Ameya to join. I will quickly share some of my own experiences in Goa and what I have experienced. Okay, so Ameya, you will wait for us. Once we join, just let me know. Okay. So it's not just about Goa. It's like overall we see that in India, if you try to build a practice from a smaller place, it's definitely very very different, right? And every place interestingly has its own opportunities, right? So a different kind of practice, different kind of opportunities that arise over there. Okay. Yeah, I mean, once you speak, I'll come to know. Please try continue.
Okay. I just tried logging back in. So I don't know where I stopped. I think I stopped at in Dubai. I don't know whether I
Yeah.
came back to India.
So what were you doing in Dubai, Amir?
So I joined an aviation and a real estate law firm in Dubai
Right.
called Donald Bunker and Associates. Donald Bunker is one of the very few aviation lawyers and a professor that teaches aviation law across the world.
Mhm.
And so I was there for about 3 years, and then I moved back to India, working in house. And that is what I was trying to mention, that how there is a sudden shift of working in a law firm to what kind of learning curve there is working in house is exceptional. And the reason, the difference between the two is that when you start off in a law firm as a new joinee and a new and a young lawyer, today in tier one and tier two cities and law firms there, you get pressed and focused into a practice area, and then you're groomed in a particular practice area, and then you grow. It's very difficult for you to do 4 or 5 different practice areas. Your expertise is taken as and when needed in a transaction and things like that, which is completely different to working in house, where you tend to do everything because the teams are smaller. You're dealing with different kinds of lawyers, you're dealing with different kinds of law firms. And highlight of the company that I was working for was that a lot of M&A work that the company did, which is about 15, 20 M&As in the span of 3, 4 years that I was there, was in-house. And they were only reaching out to law firms in different countries where they needed some simple legal opinions or some filings had to be done, is when they reached out to the law firms. But they had developed some sort of a regimen or some sort of a routine to do the due diligence, or to review agreements and things like that themselves. And that was a great learning for me, which wouldn't have happened if I was in a law firm, because you don't tend to understand the business aspects of a business in a law firm. You tend to do it gradually, but here what happens is you are interacting in-house on a day-to-day basis with your finance, you're interacting with the top management, you're interacting with HR, you're interacting with new joinees, sales, everything, right? So you get an overall perspective of how a business works, how those balance sheets are churned out, what kind of red flags are there when it comes to litigation, and there could be inquiries and commissions and things like that. So there is a holistic learning that happens in the in-house setup, and I urge and keep telling youngsters that there has to be what happens is you want to immediately join a company or immediately join a law firm and want to grow very fast. But I think it's very important to test all these experiences, and also it also helps you as an individual as well as a lawyer. So that is what happened with me when I moved back to India. And then a point came where an inflection point, I would say, where I was at crossroads of whether to continue working in house or apply for a law firm or start something of my own, right? And with the experience that I had, I was talking to a few friends, and we could partner with each other and start something in cities. But because of the love of Goa, because I'm from here, and there's a little bit of ease when you're from a particular place like Goa to transition out. I decided to move back and set up Legal Minds, which is about 5 years ago. We are not a very big numbered firm. We are about 10 of us, but we do some interesting work. And over the years, what has happened is that the first M&A that we did in Goa was about 3-4 years ago, which was not a very big transaction, but it taught us a lot of things. And that client today has given us not only M&A work, but we do IP work for them. We do a little bit of litigation work for them. We've done arbitration for them. We do commercial contract review. So what the difference between working in a city versus a place like Goa is that you tend to build relationships and trust over a period of time, and then there is no barrier, there is no Lakshman Rekha as to what kind of practice I'm in, right? So today, even if there is an inheritance issue, the promoter would come and say, or there is some management issue, he would come and say, what is the legal advice here? So that is where we have built some sort of a holistic overall legal framework to ourselves. One thing that we have done is we have stuck to the type of work we want to do. So even if in an area of inheritance or area of M&A or any other area of IP, we want to be very clear on what kind of work we want to do within that practice area. I think that is very important for you to manage volume, manage quality, as well as manage time. I think these are three important aspects to doing that. So that's what is a little journey, Manoj, till today, and yeah.
Can you share something about the legal work landscape in Goa? Like, what kind of work exists? What, in terms of litigation, in terms of businesses, what are
Yes.
the areas that exist?
See, traditionally, Goa has been a mining hub. So there's a lot of mining related work that used to be there. But with the mining slowdown, and obviously tourism and hospitality. So largely, the core areas or sectors, I would say, today are tourism, hospitality, obviously subject to now what is going to be aftermath of COVID-19, we don't know, because tourism is going to take a big hit. But tourism, hospitality, real estate,
Mhm.
uh, are core areas here. So traditionally, people have been the lawyers and the lawyer fraternity here are extremely busy with real estate work. They are doing a lot of real estate litigation, and obviously incidental disputes that come out of real estate litigation, which could be anything 138 you may call it, or recoveries, whatever, and inheritance. And because we follow Portuguese code here, and therefore if you have to sell a property, or if you want to partition a property, or if you want
Hmm.
to manage your estate, a lot of fallback has to happen on this Portuguese code. So for
Right.
me, it was the first time when
Isn't
I
it
came
called
back.
the Uniform Civil Code, right? Or is it
Absolutely,
Portuguese?
absolutely, Uniform
Hmm.
Civil Code. Yes.
Hmm.
So those are the traditional practice areas here, and when I came back here, I realized that that is something I cannot really keep out of our domain. Even if you want to do an M&A, we want to do a little bit of that also, because there is an opportunity. And if you are, have as I mentioned earlier, a promoter giving us M&A work may have real estate work as well, and if he has bestowed that faith in us that we can help him in this kind of a service, it does work. So initially, when we started, we were very focused around doing corporate litigation, M&A, IP. But overall, subsequently we realized that we have to also do some local work, local related areas. Uh, in the last 2 or 3 years, there has been a surge of startups in Goa. There are about, I think, about 1,600 registered startups. I would say, whether it's a single person or a multi-team startup, and that is where we have done a lot of work in the last 2 or 3 years with startups. And these are small M&As. These are small due diligence exercises. We also work on a retainer basis with few startups. Help them in the commercial contract review. We help them in litigation advisory, IP, and things like that. With technology, we have also reached out to through our network potential clients in India and outside of India. So the friendship that I had developed or good offices that we built over the years have also helped in providing services all across. And with technology, that's definitely helpful. So in the last year or two, we have done about 4 or 5 transactions, which are very small as compared to law firms in tier 1, tier 2 cities. But we have done all of that remotely from Goa, and we were very proud of that. But overall, I think to be stationed in Goa, so the thing is, a lot of people call me to say, Goa, you must be having a very relaxed life. You don't, as a lawyer, you don't get to work too much and things like that. But believe me or not, every lawyer here is very busy. Obviously, people who are into litigation, they have a different lifestyle altogether. But here we have managed to keep ourselves busy, and at the same time, obviously the balance factor is there. I mean, it, and Goa provides that little bit of balance factor as a place per se, right?
Right,
So
right.
that is where we stand really, in terms of what we've done.
So, Ameya, how do you get clients? Because you are working with a lot of clients which is not out of Goa, right? If I correctly understand, most of your M&A on technology practice is happening remotely, correct?
Yes, yes. So I think a
Yeah.
lot of it works. As I mentioned, the first transaction that we did, it all started from there about 4 years ago,
The
and
first transaction was in
it
Goa,
takes a
wasn't it?
lot of effort also in Goa. A company, from Chennai that invested and acquired substantial equity in a company in Goa. So we were leading for the sellers uh, in that transaction. Yes.
Right, right, right. And when you are basically but that was still subject to Goa. Like the target company was in Goa, but after that you are doing a lot of work that is not connected to Goa at all, if I correctly understand, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And that, I think that over the years, what has happened is, we have started to interact with various stakeholders, the small investment bankers, mentors, to bigger companies and things like that. We have also gone out, not very aggressively, but attended events, spoken a little bit. So you always get this, first look that what kind of a M&A practice are you doing in Goa? I mean, is this something that you can ever do? Or
Right, right.
which is a very justifiable reaction, because everybody knows that
Oh,
and
Ameya,
what is also
again there is
happened
a,
over the
we
past
can't hear you now.
several years is a lot of the bigger businesses here, right? Can't hear? Is this better?
Now we can hear you. Yes, yes, go on.
Yeah. So I was saying that some of the businesses in Goa,
Mm-hmm.
which are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 businesses, they have never encountered over the past few decades anybody doing corporate work in Goa. They always thought that corporate work means Bombay or Delhi or Bangalore
Right,
now,
right.
right?
So that is
So
what I'm trying to understand, that how come you're working from Goa and getting work? So don't clients object? How does it work?
no, so again, as far as startups are concerned, this is a direct applicable practice area that we can work with startups with, right? Because they are ultimately looking for investment, they are ultimately looking to scale up, and few of them we are currently assisting with, who have done about 3 4 rounds of funding, right? So I think startups we see not only in Goa but outside as a very good potential market to work with. I think that is one market. But otherwise, in Goa, what has happened is, M&A for family-driven businesses is something which is done more of a stock investment rather than company structuring or acquisitions and things like that. Save and except certain businesses that people have gone out for to acquire or to sell, but they will never, they have not in the past ever thought that there is anybody in Goa that we would go to. They would always, and you have this comfort factor of a bigger law firm giving you advice and certifying your transaction is something that has traditionally happened. But I think going forward as a say a 2 or 3 or a 5 year horizon, for us we have to either grow organically, and at the same time we have to also reach out to people and say that this is, here we are, we provide the service, and we've been doing that successfully over the last 4 or 5 years. And that is how it works. So I think that is our plan. We want to reach out to as many people as possible to say that not only M&A, but we also have built expertise for certain practice areas. One thing that we have seen in Goa inbound is that there's a lot of acquisition or M&A centric work in real estate hospitality business.
Right,
So
right.
we've been part of a couple of them.
Mhm.
In fact, there are a lot of investment bankers or agencies which are focused only around hospitality in India, as you are aware, who believe that Goa is the target market, and because of brand Goa, they believe that whether COVID-19 or not, when things start, they're going to be back in business. So we see that as an opportunity as well. That people are going to invest in land, people are going to invest in projects, people are going to invest in hotels. It may take a year or year and a half now with the current situation, but that's another target market that we believe we can look at.
So that's very interesting. So I just want to understand, if we talk about like the tourism industry, where which Goa, like, I think a majority of people in Goa are somehow connected with the tourism industry. What kind of work exists apart from investment into projects, right? Is there any other kind of work that the tourism industry requires?
So in Goa, there are industries. So there are two types of manufacturing as far as manufacturing is concerned. So there are MSMEs, several of them, and we have zones here, industrial estates that they are housed out of. And then there are a lot of multinational companies that do their manufacturing and warehousing here.
No, no,
So that's
I will
another.
come
So what happens is
to the
because of their
other part.
presence here and because of their
Ameya, sorry to interrupt you. No, I was asking within tourism. Within tourism, what is the other kind of work? Of course, there is manufacturing, and we come to that. But within tourism, apart from the investment bit that you mentioned, is there any other work within the tourism sector?
So within tourism, casinos have been a new introduction. Casinos. I think a lot of revenue building of the government happens out of casinos in Goa. So that has been there. So there is a little work around there. There's litigation that constantly happening and things like that. Because of the whole setback, not only of COVID-19, but prior to that, I think last 1 or 2 years have been pretty bad for tourism overall because of bad publicity, because of
Right,
incidents
right.
that have happened and things like that.
Yeah.
So overall, tourism in Goa is the complexion of tourism has also changed. So we used to get a lot of queries with people who want to set up small shops. So I think Ramanuj, what we could do is to answer some of the questions. I see a lot of bogus writing here, which you can delete these people, but there are some valid questions as well. So we could just go through some of them and maybe debate around that, if that's okay.
So, what are your thoughts about, the gaming industry? Because there is a gambling industry, there's a large gambling industry in Goa, right? So, how is that, and
Yes.
is it actually big enough? Is there enough legal work around it? How is that?
So I think just before I answer that question, Ramanuj, I think there will be a paradigm shift in how uh, gaming is going to happen as well. I think with COVID or otherwise, I think technology and some of the states have passed statutes that online gaming is possible as long as it is a game of skill and not chance, right? So that is what the underlying principle is, and that is what is going to change significantly, in my opinion. I think technology has taken over. I mean, even how we do due diligence today, even if you go to top tier law firms, there are tools that help you in doing legal due diligence. Obviously, there's an application of mind at some point, but your basic fundamental, investigation is done using technology. And I think gaming is something which will be part of this going forward. But otherwise, casinos in Goa, obviously, there's a lot of outrage around it from the locals for whatever has happened. But it has proved to be very beneficial in sustaining the economy. When mining went down, casinos were instrumental in keeping the economy intact. So yeah, the legal work, if you have to speak, there is, but not substantial for everybody. Again, a lot of the structuring and M&Es around within the casino groups happen out of tier one, tier two cities. They don't really reach out to local lawyers for any assistance. But there is local laws. Every time there is an interface of local laws or any local advice or litigation is something that is prevalent. And I think with this kind of a hit that has happened, casinos are going to stay, for a longer time than if anybody was thinking that it wouldn't. So there will be work, and now there's a lot of employment that these casinos also hold. So there will be questions and advisories around not only functioning of casinos but various ancillary aspects such as HR, employment, commercial contracts, IP, and things like that.
Okay, got it. So, there are a lot of questions, but please hold your questions. We will take questions towards the end. Please do not constantly bombard on the chat for questions. We will get to questions. Let me do the webinar the way I see. Okay. So, Acha, one question I have for Ameya is that, uh, if you look at the litigation landscape in Goa, what kind of matters are frequent, like any major areas that stand out apart from real estate, which you already mentioned, and of course you said inheritance? Is there anything else that stands out?
So I think there is, and this is not only Goa but all across. I think arbitration is something that has exponentially grown. I think everybody, whether they know or not, there is an arbitration agreement. Even if you're doing leases, you have arbitration clauses these days. So we also do a lot of arbitration matters here, and I think that is a way forward. I think that is one area which has mushroomed quite a bit in the last 4, 5, 6 years with the new act as well. Other than that, there are a lot of, in terms of volume, there were a lot of motor vehicles cases that Goa had. I think there's a lot of volume around that. Other than that is largely real estate, and real estate. When I say real estate, it is CPC. It could be various components within it, whether it's recovery, whether it's performance, whether it's damages. There's plethora of litigation around real estate. There is a large amount of legal issues and litigation around title. That is one thing that is a big issue in Goa in terms of title over the property, because there is, because of the Portuguese Uniform Civil Code being the principal code determining title and ascendancy of title and how it has flown. There's a lot of confusion that has happened around it. People have taken advantage. A lot of brokers are involved, and because of which there is multiplicity or duplicity of sales that have happened. So there is a lot of litigation around that part of real estate, so to speak. Maritime mercantile laws, commercial suits are also quite a bit, because maritime has a, so there is some on there as well.
So, when you started building your practice, what were the few initial challenges you faced? Initial challenges that you faced?
So as you know, Ramanuj and everyone, legal practice in a place like Goa or anywhere, particularly in tier 3, tier 4 areas, it takes a long time for people to have confidence in you. So practices are built over over years, over a decade, right? So so that was a challenge, because although I had experience in India, ultimately it is people who want to know you, they want to have faith in you, they want to have trust in you, they want to confide in you. And initially that was a challenge. Although my father is a lawyer, he's always when I came back, I started, it is an independent office and we operate separately. So although my generally people knew about my family name.
Okay, can you repeat
Yeah.
that?
So in brief, in brief, what I was saying is, every time you start a practice, or you start your continuation of your practice in a new place, that the interface is the biggest challenge. People need to confide in you, have faith in you, and people want to know who you are before they actually start engaging with you, because this is more of a arranged marriage, right? I mean, a lawyer relationship with the client and a doctor relationship with the patient is something, or a chartered accountant with with the client, is a long-term relationship, and that is what we believe in, and that is what we've sort of harnessed upon, that any assistance that we do, any service that we provide, that service should not be limited to a particular subject area. Because today, if I'm providing advice on real estate title, and says is a startup who's he wants to buy a small piece of land or a commercial office, tomorrow if he wants to think about M&A, he should come to me, and that is the confidence building exercise that all of us should be part of. And it's a challenge, it's not easy, but what happens in a place like Goa, as against tier 1, tier 2 cities, is that you can provide that kind of an, come up with that kind of an approach. You can say that if you are some good at doing something, or you have done, or you have experience in doing a particular kind of work, then I can sort of provide multi-layered service across practice areas, which is an advantage in a place like Goa or a tier 3, tier 4 cities.
Okay. And what is the, like, there must have been a lot of challenge in building a team as well, right? Because given the kind of practice you're doing, there would be not that kind of I mean, how did you find the right kind of people to build your team? How big is your team right now?
So we are about, as I mentioned earlier, we're about 10 people. We're not a very big team, and the reason we are that size is because it was very difficult for me to find the right people. Because what happens, the general tendency is that in Goa, graduates who graduate out of Goan law schools, their immediate transition is into litigation, or joining a counsel who's in, either high court or other courts, is what they are, is what the doctor has told them to do. And therefore, for us to be engaged in multi-layered practice areas, whether it's IP or M&A or real estate, we wanted people with that kind of bandwidth. We wanted people to adjust to that kind of switch in interface, and to learn in every practice area. And that is what I learned, as I mentioned earlier, as an in-house lawyer, that there's something that you learn being in-house, that it's not, you have to multitask across areas, not only your contracts. I think which is key, and which is very interesting. And if you develop this particular habit, is when you can master it upon. So I think it was initially difficult to find the right people, but today we are a small team of competent people, a very research oriented team. We also have a couple of company secretaries as part of our team. So every time we do our M&A, and we have to do any filings, whether it's RBI, FEMA, or ROC, we have people in house to do that.
Okay, and what is your, like, what are your training challenges? Because one of the biggest challenge law firms face when they're trying to scale up and when they're getting clients is that how do we consistently deliver high quality of work? Because when you are doing it yourself, of course you may have your standards, but when you bring in new people and you train them and you want them to deliver the same quality of work, it becomes a big challenge. So how did you handle that?
That is a challenge, because what happens is, in a setup like ours, and in a place where we are in, and multiple areas that we work in, with the volumes that we have, it's very difficult to provide training. And I think what we have done is we have created layers of delivery. So some of the people who have to do a particular assignment will only do that for certain time, and then we can screen it, we can develop it, and then move them to the next stage. So it takes a little bit of it's a challenge, but I don't think it's unachievable. So we managed to do it case by case.
Got it. And what is your when you are actually how has things evolved? Like in the beginning, you had a certain kind of business development strategy, but now what is your goal in, let's say, in the coming 1 year or so? Where, like, what kind of, how do you set your next level of goal, and what are the business development strategies you could share?
So one thing I must say, Ramanuj, is that from the time we started till today, we had to flex our business strategies quite a bit because we are here. Because there is no proper interface to businesses, to incubators, to investment bankers, how people are advantaged in cities like Bombay or Bangalore or Delhi. So we have had to change our strategies from time to time. But today we have developed a network, and we have developed some sort of a strategy in terms of who we want to meet, where we want to go and reach out, and things like that. So even when we look at events, there are hundreds of events that happen every week in this country. So what is relevant to you is niche and is key. I don't think being everywhere at our level is affordable and is practical. So I think it's very important for us to really pick and choose, cherry pick as to where we want to go and reach out. And over the next 2 years, that's the plan. And definitely not Goa, out of Goa as well. Yeah.
Right, right. And what is, like, what is your strategy in terms of, like, how has business development changed for you from the beginning till now?
See, the business development in the beginning was, a few of us trying to market our experience and what we have done in the past. But today, I think the key factor is that we can speak about 15, 20, 25 things that we have done over the past 5 years, which are, across different practice areas. And that is what we want to go. So I think one of the target institutions or a setup, I would say, is startups. I think startups is something that we can definitely work on, and we have worked with on a timely time to time basis. Now there is this whole focus on what kind of a startup that you specialize in. That is what is happening with a lot of law firms as well. So we have figured that out as well, as to which are the mindsets that we can work with, which are the mindsets that can accept us to provide this legal service. So I think over the next 1 or 2 years, our target is to reach out, starting with startups, and obviously at a startup of a particular age or a stage. We can't go to ideation startup, and
Right, right.
also reach out to maybe investment bankers, because that is where. So what I learned over the last 5 years, and when I was with UPL, we used to deal with investment bankers who were a vertical of a bank. They would have a vertical of these large banks who would do investment banking work. But over the years, I have realized that there are now agencies which are very, very focused around certain areas. So as I mentioned earlier, there are agencies that only do hospitality. They only do hospitality, which is premier hospitality, right? So it could be five-star hotels or four-star hotels, or premier housing and things like that. So there has been a shift in that kind of business as well. So I think it's very, as long as you are able to cater to a particular kind of practice area, and you are able to prove that you have done substantial quality work in that area, you can sort of cherry pick agencies to work with and to target. So I think that is what our plan is next 1 year or 2 years, to really reach out to relevant people who we think will appreciate what we have done, and who we think have the right wavelength to work with us with the size of our law firm.
Got it. So, if you look at it from a strategic point of view, how do you, like, what do you think really worked out? Like, what are the maybe the top three things you did very well that really worked out in while looking back?
I think one has to be very, very transparent. I think sincerity and transparency is something that my parents have taught us, and I think that stands out. Whether you're a big firm or a law firm, or a small firm or a large firm, right? And that is something which is a takeaway for any business or any client that is coming to you with his problem. Because ultimately, even if it's a happy transaction of an acquisition, there are underlying problems that you have to deal with. And there's a lot of personal information, promoter information, IP, proprietary information that is being shared with you. And if you're not transparent and not sincere and not forthcoming, is when you lose the battle. You lost that battle. So I think that is a key essential characteristic, whether as an individual or a law firm, people have to build and imbibe upon.
Okay. Okay. And anything else that comes to your mind?
So I think research is the second most important thing, because today the clients, or whether it's a startup or a evolved business or an individual, he knows his subject. He knows more or less what he's talking about. And if you are unable to give an application of a legal principle to solve or resolve or to aid, facilitate his transaction, he's going to lose, faith in you, and he may not, he may wrap up with one transaction and may not come back to you. So I think research in application is something which is very, very crucial. You have to be updated.
Right. And when you see, like what are the challenges you see going forward, like in terms of how you are like, if you are trying to grow as a law firm, what challenges that you still face? Because there are different things at different stages that you tend to face. So initially there are, like, right in the first 6 months there are different challenges, and then you find your feet, and there's a different level of challenges, and things keep changing over time, right? So,
Yes.
how does, like, what are the challenges that you face at this stage currently?
So I think, keeping COVID aside for a bit, I think the biggest challenge that we would have is to keep doing what we're doing at, because the scalability. I think scalability is something that we have had difficulty in. So for example, if I want to do 10 M&As, if I'm in Bombay, I will end up doing 15, 20, right? As against Goa, where within Goa, you may not have a lot of volume on that kind of work, and therefore you have to reach out. So reaching out, business development, getting the right click for somebody to really appreciate being from Goa is something what you can do, is one challenge. But I think that now bringing COVID-19 as a relevance, I personally feel that there is going to be a lot of advisory related to litigation that's going to come. Whether it's commercial contract, whether it's labor and employment, whether it's real estate, RERA, all of that is going to fill up a lot of volume with advisory. I don't think people will easily choose litigation unless they can afford it, or unless they think that it's really material and pressing. But I think a lot of volume of legal advisory that's going to come up, and I think that we can definitely be part of that process and assist people in doing that. Which again is not, you don't need to be physically present, right? I mean, these kind of queries are going to come up across, and if you're able to provide advice, you can do it from anywhere.
Okay. Uh, there are a bunch of questions. We can start taking some questions, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, there's some people continue to disturb the session. I am trying to remove all of them, but well, anybody who posting anything irrelevant, I'm immediately removing them. Uh, M&A practice. So people are asking, some people are asking, so one question that somebody asked, which I found quite interesting, but this question tend to come in almost all the sessions. So people who are attending for the first time tend to ask, isn't business development soliciting? How can you do business development?
So see, yes, I agree, and business development is soliciting. So there is no, and obviously it is unethical. It is barred under the relevant
No, I
legislation
don't
that we
think
have.
business development as such is barred. What happens is that solicitation is barred. Solicitation is going
Solicitation.
to and telling somebody, give me some matters. Give me your
Correct.
matter to give some matter to me, and
Correct.
I will do this case for you. Can you pay me? Oh, so that's a solicitation, right? Solicitation is
Yes.
asking people to give you matters. But business development doesn't have to be like going and straight away asking people to give you work. So I mean, wouldn't you say, like, how do
Yeah,
you do it?
absolutely, absolutely. I think there is a subtle there's a huge distinction between the two, and I think as you rightly said, business development is telling what you have done, and what you have been doing, and whether people want to engage with you or not is a call that somebody has to take, right? And anybody who's of a
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
to rhyme on what you were saying, Ramanuj, is that there is definitely a distinction between business development and soliciting. And business development is to showcase what you have done and what you are good at. And anybody of a reasonable, prudent, astute business mind or an individual would know whether you are soliciting or not. So I think there's no straightforward answer to this, unfortunately, but I think yes, soliciting is bad, and I know there are various instances at top level, whether it's law firms or individual lawyers who use cost cutting as a benchmark to use these tactics, which is unfair.
Yeah. So very simple thing that I tell our students is that business development is, if you think you can do a law practice without doing business development, then you I don't know in which world you belong, because in my world it is necessary. And if but you have to do it in an ethical way, and you cannot do solicitation and business law is very different. If you're educating people, and if you are able to so for example, you can see all the big law firms have their websites, they're blogging, they're educating. You can teach law. Even by teaching law you can generate business, right? Because people who learn from you, they benefit from you, they understand your expertise, they definitely will refer matters to you.
That's right.
uh,
That's right.
and there are many other ways. If you educate your clients about stuff, you blog, all of that, right?
Yes.
So it is there is no nothing stops one from developing business if they want to. It's, in fact, it is a better way to do it, right? So if you directly go and call people and say I want this matter, it's highly unlikely they'll just give it to you, right?
Totally agree.
So
Totally agree.
yeah, absolutely, right. So great. So, there were a bunch of questions. I can't see most of the questions because there have been a lot of disturbing messages and it has been all lost. So,
Yeah.
those who have questions, please ask questions into the chat directly.
I see some questions here. If I
Yeah,
may
yeah. Please
refer
go
to
ahead.
those.
Please
Yeah.
pick any questions you want to pick.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a question from Himanshu Mishra on difficulties faced by a lawyer from other states if they want to settle practice in Goa. I think I have answered this a little earlier. It's all about being visible. It's all about people having faith in you. It's all about a little bit of a buzz around who you are and what you're capable of. So although there is no embargo, or I'm sure anybody can travel anywhere and start something of their own. It takes a little bit of effort to unroot yourself, and then you try to root yourself in a place like Goa. But again, nothing is impossible. There is another question from Yamini Jain. How does the UCC Uniform Civil Code affect litigation and dispute resolutions in Goa? So to answer that, it doesn't affect, but it definitely is a foundation to disputes, because today if you have any title issues, or if you have anything to do with inheritance issues and wills and things like that, you have to go back onto the Uniform Civil Code and principles around that, especially with inheritance. So it will affect litigation based on what your case scenario is, because the law is in place, pretty much a very robust statute. Uh, then the next one is from Akshay Agarwal. Casino industry operates from Goa. Do Goa-based lawyers have any advantage? As I mentioned, a lot of transactional practice around casinos happens, out of Goa, with top law firms, and the related advisories and litigation practice is what people can benefit from being in Goa out of casinos. Uh, yeah, there's a very interesting question from Siddharth Shekhar who says, "Strange, why will clients object if you work from Goa?" But yeah, that's it's a very interesting question. I have no answer. I'll answer that separately, maybe privately to you, Siddharth. Uh, Advocate Upasana, scope for litigation or real estate is more both. I think litigation and real estate. So whether it's real estate litigation or otherwise, and real estate investments, these are the key areas here. So there is a lot of investment, whether it's land or whether it's housing, commercial real estate. Obviously, is going to be hit now with COVID-19. But I think because of Brand Goa and because of the cases being very minimal out of COVID-19 in Goa, it's definitely going to be a residential hub for a lot of people to move into Goa. So I think that market is going to sustain or a boom. Uh,
Right.
I think these are
Okay.
largely the relevant ones, Ramanuj.
Right. You don't see any other relevant questions. So there are uh,
Just scrolling down.
there are a bunch of questions about a lot of questions are irrelevant. There's a question of UCC. How does interplay of UCC and Goa happen with appellate courts in India? I mean, that's interesting. What do you say?
So in appellate court is the appellate relevant court is Supreme Court because you already have a High Court here. So all your appellate jurisdiction is taken care of. So I don't know why there could be any challenge there unless you. I'm just thinking you reside somewhere else and you want to initiate an action, but again you'll be barred because the subject matter is here. So there will not be any interplay as such in terms of UCC. There are a lot of issues around domicile because there were some judgments, and I could share Ramanuj with you, and you could share with your students
Sure,
as to
sure, sure.
what is domicile for the purposes of taking recourse to UCC or taking recourse to Portuguese Civil Code. So today, if I'm born in Goa and I held a real estate. I went and relocated to Canada, for example, married somebody there, and I pass away. What rights that Canadian national spouse would have in the absence of domicile and things like that. So there are a few questions which are answered by the Goa High Court and Supreme Court around those areas. So I'll share those subsequently.
Right, right. There is a question about whether like in money recovery CPC should be followed or Portuguese code. I don't think Portuguese code applies like doesn't replace the CPC, right?
It
So
doesn't.
I mean,
Recovery will
uh,
always be under CPC, and now obviously if
CPC.
it's a commercial suit under
Portuguese
commercial
code is
code.
only related to family law, right? Family and
Yes,
inheritance,
it's
marriage.
related to title, inheritance, family, as you're saying. Yes.
Right, excellent. Okay. So great. So I think we are more or less done with the questions. And thank you so much, Ameya, for making time. Although we had internet problem today and a lot of troublesome attendees who tried disturbing, we definitely will have to figure this out in future.
Yeah. No, no,
This
that's
is the
fine.
first
I'm
time we are
very
facing an issue like this. Thank you so much for.
most welcome. Just two more, I think, two relevant queries. I will just answer those, and then we can close.
Sure, sure,
Ramanuj,
sure. Please go ahead.
I
Go
think
ahead.
there are two, three people who wrote about scope of NDPS practice in Goa, and I think there is a huge scope for NDPS, unfortunately, and so there obviously it's very channeled around bail and things like that, and what kind of NDPS you are convicted out of holding and possessing. So that is a pretty big practice within the criminal domain. Maritime law as well used to be, when mining was booming. There's a lot of issues around that those days, but still there are some port related issues and maritime disputes that are still prevalent. So yes, I think both these areas are pretty much active here in Goa.
Right. So, okay. Okay. So there's a question I think about some Hindu Marriage Act. Is it applicable in Goa? And
No,
about
because
tribunals
UCC.
practice also.
No, UCC is applicable. So there is a common code for all religions. So there is no personal laws in
Hindu
Goa.
marriage, personal laws. Okay. And what about this particular question on these tribunals? Are there any tribunals where you can practice in Goa?
Yes, so there are. Obviously now the company, the relevant NCLT is Bombay. Relevant trademark registry is again Bombay. You have administrative tribunal, you have labor tribunal. What else? I think any specific tribunals that you want to know about, then I can answer. But I think
Right. But are there any tribunals based out of Goa specifically?
yes. So there's administrative tribunal. There are labor tribunals which are here. But if there is any company law dispute or anything, then it's not here. It's
The
in Bombay.
NCLT will be Bombay.
Yeah,
And
in
what
Bombay.
about
Yeah.
tax tribunals? Are there any tax tribunals?
Tribunal is here. There is a
Is-
tax authority here in Goa. Yes.
Great, great. So if somebody wants to start practicing in Goa, what should they do? Where should they start? Any final advice? Then we'll wrap up.
Is taxation is something which is definitely needed. There are a lot of people. What happens here is that unlike Bombay or other cities, tax law advisory is done by chartered accountants or even company secretaries to an extent. So we don't really have tax specialized lawyers. So you would always see in Goa bench of the High Court here a lot of counsels that argue tax matters. They travel from Bombay or Delhi. So that is one area which is definitely, there's a lot of scope for anyone to pursue.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Ame, for sharing your time with us. And have a great day and have a great week. And thank you, everybody. Have a great week. And looking
Thank
forward
you. Thank you.
to future trouble-free sessions. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ramadev. Bye bye.